After dinner for Kim and Eila, because their parents insisted on eating together early, and before dinner for Benny and Medea, whose meals were generally late and unpredictable. First, Kim would ride down from the experimental farm on the mountain, a hill, really, where his family lived, to Benny's house, which was on the highest street of the suburb below the mountain, with Eila trailing behind. Benny would be ready and ride out straight away, with Medea yelling out to Eila to wait for her as she put her shoes on or looked for her hairband or whatever. The night the globe appeared was like any other night for the kids, at first. Once they got to the lake, Kim and Benny put their bikes down by the boat ramp and sat on the park bench by the pebble-strewn foreshore to chat and skip stones, while Eila and Medea lounged on the roundabout in the playground behind, idly pushing it with their feet while they talked. The two groups were far enough apart that neither group could hear what the other duo was talking about, which was the way they all liked it. For Kim, it was a break from having Eila always know more about almost everything that he did and telling him about it. His sister never held back, no matter how many times he tried to tell her that people often didn't like being corrected, and by people, he meant himself. Eila liked hanging out with Medea because Mad worshipped Eila and was always happy to listen to her talk about anything. Also, it was a break for Medea from her own older sibling Benny, being an ever-watchful presence. But as long as she could keep an eye on her sister, Benny didn't need to listen to her. So the separation suited everyone. Dan Lovell's family got a colour TV, said Benny. Colour television had only been introduced 18 months before, years later than in most other countries. She picked up a stone and idly threw it across the water, lapping near their feet. It skipped 4 times and sank. This was a poor result for her, as she was a champion stone skipper and generally fantastic at throwing anything, bowling in cricket or pitching in softball. "Remember that American girl whose family visited last year?" continued Benny. "Yeah, Rose. She couldn't believe no one had a colour TV yet," said Benny. She laughed and threw another stone. It skipped 6 times. "She must have looked in everyone's house, everyone in 5th grade anyway. Demented." "She didn't come to visit us," said Kim. "Yeah, well, obviously," said Benny. Kim nodded, acknowledging the point. His family didn't have even a black and white television, and were never going to get one. His parents were dedicated to what they called an alternative lifestyle, which was why they took the job looking after the experimental farm. It had 6 long greenhouses, and besides the actual scientific crops, Kim reckoned a bit too much of the space was taken up with the family's vegetables. He was always worried his parents would get fired, but the scientists from the university down the hill and the government research centre further west along the ridge didn't seem to mind. Possibly because they were regularly given baskets of tomatoes and beans and zucchinis and out-of-season flowers. Eila, on the other hand, did not share his anxiety. Sometimes Kim felt like his parents and sister lived in a different world to the one he inhabited. They were all so certain about everything, in their different ways. He wished he had their single-mindedness sometimes, but try as he might, he couldn't stop worrying about things that might happen, or could happen, or were definitely going to happen. "I wish I had a bow," said Benny, skipping another stone. She mimed shooting an arrow up at the sky, which was beginning to darken, the sun already out of sight behind the mountain, though its reddish light still lingered like Fladrith. Fladrith was the name of Benny's character in a new game called Dungeons and Dragons. Kim had found it browsing in the city's one tiny game store, which mostly sold jigsaw puzzles and chess sets. He was immediately drawn to the small white box with the picture of a wizard blowing up a bunch of little monsters, orcs or goblins, he figured out later, and not blowing them up, but casting a fireball. He stood for an hour, carefully but swiftly, reading through the 3 books.